My name is Dr. Jesus Chuy Negrete. I'm a musicologist professor, retired from the University of Houston and other universities. I went to school at Berkeley, and I'm what you would call a corridista, is that I focus on the corrido as a source of historical interpretation of Mexican history. Most of my work has been done on looking at the corrido of Mexican laborers from the early 1900s through the present. And I'm right now we're on the road with a show from the Smithsonian Institute. It's a travel exhibit on the braceros. Those were those men who crossed the Rio Grande in 1940s to 1962, and who came during World War II when the American servicemen were mostly in Europe, and so they participated in the fabrication of a lot of steel mills and railroad workers and agricultural workers during this period in history. And I focused on the songs that they used, the corrido, to describe this experience of migration, to make political statements about their condition, and the corrido was a source for them of festivales during this period in their lives, and how they utilized this folk art, this folk genre, the corrido. For example, my father was a bracero, and so an example like Jesus Garcia, who ran for mayor, his father was a bracero. So here's a small example of what a corrido like that would sound like. Playing a cappella, we're saying, Señores, voy a cantarles, pero quiero su atención, que allá en el estado de San Luis Potosí, un corrido nació. My father was a bracero. He came a long way to nowhere. And he came unwillingly dragged by that monstrous technical and industrial giant called progress and Anglo success. The year was 1942. Que lejos estoy del suelo donde he nacido. Inmensa nostalgia envane mi pensamiento, y al verme tan solo y triste en Indiana, quisiera llorar, quisiera morir del sentimiento. My father, he was a bracero. He came to work in Indiana, in the steel mills of South Chicago. And Jesus Garcia's father was a bracero. He came also to work in the state of Durango. And so when I wrote these corridos about the braceros, I try to focus on their origin and what the bracero suffered. So this is more or less what the corrido sounds like. And there's hundreds of them. The corrido is old. It's been with us since the early 1820s, and people continue to utilize the corrido to describe their history. I just recently wrote some corridos about the discrimination in Kansas City, about the segregation of Mexican labor and the segregation of schools. So the corrido lends itself to the experience of segregation and discrimination of which these men suffered. So here at Hammock, I'm working with the curator here, and with Jesus Macarena Alvarez project, about the San Juanita Project, and we're trying to focus on the similarities between Haitian workers that cross the ocean and Mexican laborers that cross the Rio. They come the same way to look for work, and they have similar perils in their crossing. So I'm trying to write a corrido about these two experiences, both crossing lands of water, both suffering traumatic migration stories, as these both workers come to pick tomatoes in North Carolina. They come, both workers, Mexican and Haitian workers, come to pick agricultural products also in Ohio, and we have a lot of Haitian workers and Mexican workers that work in Florida. So it's the experience of these two groups of men who cross the bodies of water and who sufren mucho crossing that water, crossing the Rio, as my father did is when he crossed the Rio, and as Haitian workers that I've talked to from the Farm Labor Organizing Committee, FLAC, have described to me, the terror of crossing the ocean, and that you will see in the San Juanita Project these two cultures, these two experiences, and how similar they are. And so that's why I'm working here with Jesus Macarena on this project and the people of Hammock.
Mike.